In a strange and abandoned city, there was a girl named Toshiko walking around. The city's restaurants were lit, and people's cars were still there, yet there wasn't a single living soul around. As Toshiko wandered, she observed the city and thought to herself that the residents must have perished because of the Johnny Tyson organization. She was impressed by how the organization had managed to eliminate 500,000 people in just 2 days. While she walked, she kept talking to herself, revealing that she was on her way to meet people from the organization and participate in a game they had created. She arrived at the building where she was supposed to meet her competitors. As soon as she reached the elevator, it opened for her, but she told herself that no smart fighter would ever choose to ride in a closed elevator with no escape route in case of an attack. So, she decided to take the stairs instead to secure herself. At that moment, she recalled a memory from years ago when her father was training her. He was the one who had given her that piece of advice. She also remembered the intense training sessions where her father guided her, instructing her to eliminate anyone in her way and bringing people for her to train on. He taught her how to deal with each one of them and by what method. It was clear that Toshiko was talented and deeply committed to her training, always following her father's instructions. But once, a man begged her for mercy and she felt sorry for him, deciding to let him go. When she returned to her father, he slapped her and brought the same man back, killing him right in front of her. He told her never to show mercy and never to let her emotions take control. At that moment, Toshiko described her father as a highly disciplined man who couldn't distinguish between the men working for him and his own daughters. She went to her mother, whom she described as obsessed with them, relying on them for everything. Her mother was especially attentive to Toshiko, convinced that she would one day become the head of their family. Toshiko felt trapped in a contradictory household. Her father subjected her to a hellish training regime, while her mother treated her like a princess. Even her younger sister, Kyoko, was strange, enjoying killing animals for no reason and taking pleasure in it. In short, the whole family was unhinged. One day, Toshiko's father returned from the Johnny Tyson game victorious. Toshiko and her sister Kyoko ran to congratulate him, but he silenced them, saying he didn't want any celebration. He told them he had something important to discuss. He had chosen who would participate in the next Johnny Tyson competition, which would take place 12 years from now. At that moment, Toshiko snapped out of her thoughts as she finally reached the competition site. Before entering, she told herself that she would win this contest, bringing honor to her father and the Ino family. She stepped inside, apologized for her lateness, and introduced herself as the Wild Boar. It was then revealed that the competition consisted of 12 players, each taking on the name of an animal. Toshiko's title was the Boar. She glanced at the faces of the other participants: the bull, the sheep, the dog, the tiger, and the monkey. However, she particularly disliked the monkey, a girl she couldn't stand. She wanted to ask her why she was even here. Toshiko also noticed someone whose identity she couldn't determine, another participant who was sleeping, and one who was already dead before the game even started. A man stood next to the dead participant, claiming that he wasn't the one who killed him, despite his sword being covered in blood. There was no clearer evidence than that. At that moment, the game's referee appeared, introducing himself as Dodecable. He welcomed all the participants and instructed each of them to go to the table in front of them and take one of the 12 gems. Toshiko's eyes were drawn to a black gem, which she liked, so she chose it. She then glanced at the sleeping boy, thinking that if they left him like that until the game began, he would be considered withdrawn by the referee, meaning they would have already eliminated 2 contestants before even starting. But the monkey warrior went over and woke him up, ensuring he wouldn't miss the competition. Toshiko was infuriated by this and couldn't understand how she could be so kind in a situation like this. Another participant took his gem and asked the referee if he could also take his deceased brother's gem. Toshiko looked at him, immediately recognizing him the moment he mentioned his brother. She realized they were the legendary Tsumi twins. The referee agreed to let him keep his brother's gem and then instructed everyone to swallow the gem they had chosen. The participants obeyed, each swallowing their gem. Then, the referee revealed that the Jusiki gem they had just swallowed contained poison that would kill them exactly 12 hours from now. The objective of the competition was for each contestant to collect all 12 Jusiki gems from the others. The first person to gather them all would be declared the winner, and their prize would be the fulfillment of any wish they desired. At that moment, Toshiko's mind drifted back to the moment when her father gathered her and her sister to announce his decision on who would compete in the Johnny Tyson tournament 12 years later. It turned out that her father had chosen Kyoko, her younger sister, instead of her. Toshiko stood there in shock, unable to understand how, after all her rigorous training and dedication, he had chosen her younger sister in the end. She stormed into her room, smashing everything in frustration, vowing to destroy the entire family and personally eliminate her sister, the one standing in her way. She then went out to pick a fight with a gang, tying them up before calling Kyoko over. She told her to finish what she had started and handed her a knife, telling her to kill them. Kyoko hesitated, feeling overwhelmed, as it was the first time she had ever taken a human life. But she gathered her courage because she had to get used to it now for the competition in 12 years. She took the knife from her sister and did exactly as she was told. However, her sister told her that this wasn't enough and that they would continue the next day. The following morning, Kyoko woke up and went to school, where she met her classmate, the one she seemed to have a crush on. At the end of the day, her sister came to pick her up and took her to a place, handing her a weapon to finish off everyone there. Toshiko didn't stop there. She circled around Kyoko, pressuring her until the girl had eliminated all her classmates, including the one she liked. Shocked, Kyoko ran to her sister, exclaiming that she didn't know how she had done such a thing. Her sister calmed her down, telling her that she hadn't done anything wrong and that she needed to prepare well for the competition. Now, all Kyoko could think about was eliminating anyone in her way for the sake of the contest. Kyoko lost her mind, going around and killing anyone she saw, even the house servants, without realizing what she was doing. She laughed every time she took a life. Her father locked her in a cage in her room. Toshiko went to her and told her she had to continue. She had to break, strike, and kill anyone in her way because that was her duty as a member of the Ino family and the chosen one for the competition. She slipped a knife under the door, looked at her sister with malicious eyes, and told her to do whatever her heart told her to do before walking away. Kyoko took the knife and looked around for someone to kill but found no one, so she decided to take her own life instead. That was what Toshiko had wanted all along. She pretended to be affected and went to tell her family. At that moment, the bull spoke, cutting off Toshiko's thoughts. He asked the referee how they could get rid of the poison they had just ingested. The referee told them that the winner would receive an antidote along with the prize, allowing them to neutralize the poison. Each of the participants began asking the referee their own questions while Toshiko stood there analyzing each of their personalities. The sheep warrior asked the referee how they were supposed to retrieve the gems they had swallowed. The referee told them that the method was up to them, but the most preferred way was to eliminate their opponents and retrieve the gems from their stomachs. Once everyone had finished their questions, the referee wished them luck and left. However, before the competition could begin, the monkey warrior spoke up and suggested that they cooperate instead. She proposed that they didn't have to kill anyone, that they could collect the gems together, and whoever won could use their wish to save the others. Toshiko was shocked, thinking to herself who would be foolish enough to waste their wish on something so trivial. But to her surprise, many of the participants agreed and allied with the monkey, including the boy who had been sleeping. He woke up and agreed to the idea. At that moment, Toshiko felt like she knew the boy, as if she had heard his voice somewhere before. But she didn't dwell on it, assuming she was just mistaken. Suddenly, the ground shook, and the building collapsed over them. Toshiko woke up some time later, asking herself what had happened. When she remembered, she was delighted. Surely that alliance she had opposed had been destroyed now. She silently thanked the unknown warrior who had brought the building down. Then, she heard a strange sound around her and saw the rabbit warrior approaching from afar, charging at her. She grabbed her weapon and fired at him from a distance. In the middle of their battle, she pretended to run out of bullets. He dashed toward her and leaped to attack, but she fired at him again, landing a hit. She executed all the techniques her father had taught her, thinking she had won and was about to take his gem. But to her surprise, nothing happened to him. Suddenly, someone came from behind and stabbed her with a knife. She tried to turn and see who it was, but all she could make out was their outfit. It was the same as the boy who had been dead at the start. She asked the rabbit if he was summoning spirits. The rabbit laughed at her and told her that he had the ability to bring back those he had killed, making them obey his every command. After that, the monkey warrior, named Shario, walked through the city after leaving the collapsed tower with the boy who had been sleeping. They observed the empty city where all the residents had died within 2 days. She felt both curious and sad for the people, wondering if anyone was still alive, hiding in their homes. The boy with her told her that this was not the time to worry about others. Shario agreed, saying, "You're right, we need to find a place to hide now." He pointed toward a sewer entrance. She was impressed by his intelligence and told him that it was an excellent hiding spot since no one would think to look for them there. As they walked inside, they talked, and she thanked him for agreeing to the peace treaty she had proposed. He replied that he should be the one thanking her since she had saved him in the first place. At that moment, she realized she knew nothing about him. She asked for his name, and he told her he was Nezumi, the rat warrior. She remarked that he was too young to be competing in Johnny Tyson, assuming he must have exceptional combat skills to participate at such a young age. He responded that she must be strong as well since she was the one who brought the building down. She was surprised and asked him how he knew. He explained that she must have sensed an imminent attack on their alliance, so she initiated the attack first by collapsing the building to protect everyone from being harmed. Shario told him he wasn't just strong, he was also intelligent. Meanwhile, the sheep warrior was searching for other warriors to ambush and take their gems but couldn't find a single one. The city was completely deserted. He sat on the stairs, wondering where everyone had gone. He grew anxious as he recalled that, in a past year of the tournament, one contestant had left the city and returned just before the game ended, securing the final gem and winning. He considered doing the same but remembered that the poison he had ingested was time-restricted. Meanwhile, the dog warrior was confident he would win because he had played a very cunning trick. While the referee instructed them to swallow the gems, he had realized that the black gems were poisoned. So, he had trained his body to develop an antidote before swallowing his gem. This meant that even after 12 hours, nothing would happen to him, ensuring his victory. He decided to hide until the number of contestants had significantly decreased, then emerged to attack and take the remaining gems. However, while hiding in a garage, he heard movement and went to investigate. Back with Shario and Nezumi, he asked if she had figured out who had planned to attack them before they escaped. She admitted she hadn't had time to determine exactly who was against their alliance. Nezumi didn't believe her, saying her powers were too strong for her not to have noticed who had hostile intentions. She admitted that he was right but explained that she operated differently and had her own methods of uncovering the truth. He told her that he suspected the contestant who had opposed the alliance was someone pretending to be with them all along. Meanwhile, the dog warrior continued searching for the presents in the garage and discovered that it was the chicken warrior, named Neo. She approached him fearfully, dropping her weapons to the ground, and assured him that she had no ill intentions. She was only there to form an alliance with him. At first, he refused, seeing no benefit in teaming up with someone as weak as her. But then he reconsidered, realizing that if he rejected her, he would be forced to fight her. Any injury would put him at a disadvantage early on. Suddenly, the rabbit necromancer appeared. Neo became terrified, warning the dog that the rabbit had eliminated Tashiko and 2 others, taking control over them and adding them to his team. The dog asked how she knew all of this. She revealed that she had a special ability allowing her to communicate with birds and see through their eyes. That was how she had witnessed everything the rabbit had done, and how she had managed to track him down for their alliance. The dog thought to himself how foolish Neo was for revealing her abilities to a competitor. But his bigger problem was the rabbit warrior. Necromancers were incredibly powerful, and he knew he couldn't face him alone. So, he decided to take Neo with him and use her abilities as much as possible. However, at that moment, the rabbit walked past them and vanished. The dog asked Neo if she could determine the rabbit's location. She confirmed that she could. He told her to find out where he was so they could follow him. He agreed to form an alliance with her but made it clear that he would be the leader and that she had to follow his orders. She was thrilled to have someone she could rely on to protect her. She then asked for his name, and he told her he was called Dasko. The 2 of them left the garage in search of the rabbit. However, Neo turned out to be quite talkative, constantly chattering and giving Dasko a headache. He restrained himself from biting her and suggested they discuss the competition and its contestants instead, sharing whatever information they had. He admitted that he only knew 5 of the participants: the bull, the dragon, and the boar, who was Tashiko. He told her that the most dangerous among them was the bull, as he was a strong contender for victory. The Tsumi twins, the snake and the dragon, were also formidable threats. But since one of them had died at the start, their danger had been reduced by half. As for the monkey, she was a peace-loving warrior, an embarrassment to fighters, and despised by everyone. He was certain that the only reason Shario had joined the Johnny Tyson competition was to stop the tournament and its violence. Tashiko, on the other hand, had been extremely powerful, but luckily for them, she had died early on, eliminating her as a threat. Dasko then asked Neo what she knew about the remaining contestants. She admitted that she hadn't been deeply involved in gathering information and didn't know many of them. However, she was particularly curious about the boy who had been sleeping before the game began. He didn't look like a warrior at all. Dasko mocked her, telling her she was the last person who should be judging warriors. She replied that she felt like she had seen that boy somewhere before. Dasko admitted that he, too, had a similar feeling, as if they had fought or clashed in a battle before, but he still couldn't recognize him. Suddenly, a small bird landed on Neo's shoulder and informed her that the rabbit's team had merged with 2 other groups, forming a larger alliance. Dasko told her that they needed to form an alliance of their own with a few others. He suggested the bull since, when Shario had proposed the idea of peace and cooperation, he had supported it and had no objections. Without warning, Dasko attacked Neo and bit her arm. She screamed in fear, asking what he was doing. He reassured her that his bite would now cause her adrenaline levels to spike, significantly boosting her strength. His real intention, however, was to use Neo as bait to lure the rabbit and his team. Once she drew them out, he would launch his attack and attempt to eliminate them. But suddenly, she was shocked when Neo attacked Dasko with all her strength, killing him and taking his gem. It turned out she was extremely cunning and had only been pretending to be weak. All of this was just an act to get the gem from him. She had known that he would bite her and enhance her strength once he believed she was weak, so she had stuck close to him until she executed her plan, gaining more power and obtaining his gem as well. She tested her newfound strength by gripping an iron railing and crushing it effortlessly with a single squeeze. She was thrilled and spun around, thanking the now-dead Dasko, telling him that once she won the game, she would build a statue in his honor in her city. But as soon as she took a few steps, she forgot what he even looked like. She then used her power to locate Tashiko, who was wandering the city covered in blood, looking almost like a corpse. Neo identified her next target, Tashiko. She locked onto her location and followed her. At that moment, Neo's past was revealed. When she was a child, her parents abused her, beating her every day. One day, she woke up to find the house covered in blood, with her parents lying dead. Her condition was dire, and the medics arrived to take her to a hospital. However, she had no memory of what had happened. She spent a long time in the hospital, where 2 individuals conducted experiments on her after discovering that she had a supernatural ability to communicate with birds. One of the researchers turned out to be from the Neo family and decided to adopt her, naming her Neo after their lineage. They taught her everything about warfare and how to use her abilities. This family was corrupt, involved in wars and uprisings, with the sole purpose of destabilizing nations. They exploited Neo's abilities to locate enemy positions during battles, using her as a tool for their cause. Since she had no one else to care for her, she followed their orders, doing whatever was asked of her. Over time, she began working for herself, no longer distinguishing between allies and enemies. She used her power to her advantage in every situation. She wasn't as weak as she had once seemed. Now, Neo had reached Tashiko's location. She commanded the birds to attack. A massive swarm emerged, charging at Tashiko, who fired at them. But there were too many, and they overwhelmed her, killing her. Neo then ordered the birds to feast on Tashiko's corpse until they were full. Afterward, she left to find food for herself, entering a supermarket to search for something to eat. Suddenly, Nezumi entered. She was startled the moment she saw him. He reassured her that he wasn't going to harm her, he was just there to eat as well. He introduced himself and told her his name. In response, she introduced herself as Neo. Nezumi told her that he remembered seeing her raise her hand in agreement to Shario's treaty. He said, "Since you agreed, I'm taking you to meet Shario in person." She followed him but soon realized they were entering an underground location, dark and enclosed. She became uneasy, knowing that her birds wouldn't be able to enter a place like this to help her if needed. When Shario saw Neo, she asked Nezumi who she was. He replied, "She was one of the people who agreed to the treaty, so I brought her here." Shario welcomed her while Nezumi went to sleep again. Shario and Neo got to know each other, and Shario began explaining her treaty idea. Neo was surprised, wondering if Shario truly wanted to achieve peace. She had assumed she was just forming a team to survive longer. During their conversation, Shario mentioned wanting to track down the other contestants who had agreed to the treaty. Neo recalled who had raised their hands along with her, realizing that nearly everyone had, except for the rabbit. She immediately understood that the rabbit was against Shario and would try to eliminate them. Shario then asked if she knew what was happening in the city. Neo told her everything about Tashiko's death, Dasko, and the others. In the middle of speaking, Neo was surprised by herself. She was telling Shario the truth without lying or holding anything back. Shario made tea for them so they could talk more calmly. Neo asked about Shario's plan for winning the game. Shario told her she would share the details later and handed her some of the food that Nezumi had gathered. She then turned her back to Neo. At that moment, Neo's darker instincts urged her to attack Shario while she was off guard and take both her and Nezumi's gems. She was on the verge of doing it, but suddenly, she hesitated. Instead, she told Shario, "I can't be part of this treaty," and quickly left the area. As she was leaving, Shario called out, "If you ever change your mind, you can return to me without hesitation." Once outside, Neo scolded herself for being foolish. She should have used Shario the same way she had used Dasko. But she couldn't understand what had happened to her. Why had she spoken so sincerely to Shario? She wondered if Dasko's bite, which had strengthened her body, had also affected her mind and way of thinking. As she walked, lost in thought, she suddenly ran into the bull warrior. He stopped her and asked if she was alone or had an ally, saying, "If you have a partner, I want to see them." Neo glanced at his blood-stained appearance, realizing that he had just killed someone. She asked, "How could you do that when you were one of the people who agreed to Shario's treaty?" The bull replied, "I agreed to Shario's treaty when we were forming a team. But now there's no team, which means there's no treaty." Neo grew nervous. It would be foolish to attack the bull alone, knowing he was much stronger than her. The birds had just fed and wouldn't attack him while they were full. She found herself caught in an internal struggle. Should she run and save herself or stay and try to earn the bull's trust, forming an alliance with him? In the middle of her dilemma, the bull said, "Since you're bringing up Shario and still remembering the alliance, that must mean you were with her recently." He then asked Neo if Shario was nearby. Neo became extremely anxious and raised her weapon at the bull. He smirked and said, "That means Shario is close. And the fact that you raised your weapon proves you want to protect her." He added, "What you're doing isn't in your best interest. You need to fight for yourself and only yourself." Neo asked for his name, then told him she had decided to fight him and didn't need any more of his advice. The bull replied, "My name is Ashi." They both prepared for battle. As soon as the fight began, Ashi didn't waste any effort. He swiftly plunged his sword into Neo, killing her instantly. He took her gem and walked away as if nothing had happened. Then, Shario's story was revealed, the one Neo had sacrificed her life to protect. A long time ago, Shario was trained by 3 monkeys, but these weren't ordinary monkeys. They possessed many abilities and could even speak. They had raised Shario until she grew up and learned everything that could benefit her. Eventually, they told her that they had nothing left to teach her and that it was time for her to leave and live her life as she wished. However, they advised her to use her strength and everything she had learned for good and the benefit of others. She told them that she wanted to make the world a cleaner place, free from all the bloodshed caused by humans. One of the monkeys warned her to be careful, saying that the world was harsh and cruel, not as she imagined. She replied that she understood, but every individual had to try and start with themselves to make the world a better place. Back in the present, Shario was still underground with Nezumi. He woke up and told her that the girl named Neo, who had been with them earlier, was probably dead by now. Shario was shocked and asked how he knew. Nezumi explained that he sensed it from the movement of the rats above them. He also told her that if Neo had died, it was because of her. Shario was stunned and asked why he would say that. He explained that while Neo had been with her, her way of speaking had gradually changed. She had started talking openly and honestly, feeling completely at ease. Shario's optimism had given her hope for changing the world. Shario was upset by Nezumi's words and told him she felt like he was trying to pick a fight with her. Nezumi suggested they drop the subject before it led to an argument. He pointed out the bright side. If Neo had died, that meant 4 contestants were gone and the number was decreasing. He then asked if her plan was still going as expected. Shario, full of confidence, assured him that her plan was progressing exactly as they wanted. She admitted that she was upset because the number of people she wanted to save was shrinking, but even so, she had more than one strategy for winning. Then, Shario asked the question everyone wanted to know: why had Nezumi agreed to her peace treaty and remained committed to it, unlike the others? Nezumi told her that she wouldn't like hearing his story now, but she would learn everything she wanted to know later. Shario didn't like pressuring people, so she continued her work. She then recalled a time when she had attended a meeting with representatives from 2 rival nations. The 2 were arguing, unable to reach a solution. When Shario spoke, she managed to silence them for a moment, explaining that her goal was to stop the war between their countries and establish a peace treaty. One of the attendees recognized Shario, saying that she was famous as a peace negotiator because she had successfully resolved more than 300 international conflicts and 200 civil wars. They all trusted Shario to find a resolution to their dispute. However, another participant asked if she truly understood the root of the conflict between their nations. Shario turned on a screen in the meeting room, explaining that the dispute was over a border region that had been contested for over 70 years. Her strategy was to end the war and hostility through the citizens themselves, spreading love, peace, and cooperation between the 2 nations so that the people would desire peace on their own. The land between them would belong to both nations, where they could coexist without war. Her plan succeeded, the people united, developed mutual respect, and ended the conflict. Suddenly, Nezumi woke up, interrupting Shario's thoughts, and asked her an important question: why was she so determined to stop the Johnny Tyson competition, which gathered the 12 most dangerous warriors in the world. What was her goal in saving them when the world would be better off without them? Eliminating them would rid the world of its evildoers. She responded by asking, "Who told you they are the worst people in the world?" She explained that throughout her life, she had witnessed wars, revolutions, and famines, atrocities far worse than anything these contestants had done. She believed that everyone deserved a chance to live and change, and their transformation wouldn't just affect them, it would inspire others to change and make the world a better place. She then recalled a past conversation with her lover, who had urged her to stop what she was doing and focus on herself and their life together. Shario had told him that she was thinking about their future. That was precisely why she wanted to make the world a better place. She asked him to wait for her until she could put an end to Johnny Tyson, promising that afterward, she would return and they could continue their life together. She told him to consider her absence a battle in itself, one he had to endure and win. Suddenly, a bird arrived at the underground hideout where Shario and Nezumi were staying. Shario panicked and woke Nezumi up urgently, asking how the bird had managed to reach them. They focused on the bird's face and realized that it was dead, meaning the rabbit necromancer had taken control of it. Shario grabbed Nezumi's hand, and they ran, escaping the hideout as quickly as possible. But as soon as they emerged, they were confronted by the headless corpse of one of the contestants. It attacked them, forcing Shario to use her abilities to defend herself. At that moment, the rabbit warrior appeared and introduced himself as Usagi. His eyes glowed red, and he looked terrifying. Shario stood in front of Usagi and told Nezumi to handle the other corpses while she dealt with Usagi. Nezumi was surprised and asked, "Are you really going to fight?" She responded, "I have no choice. I'm not fighting, I'm defending myself." Nezumi agreed and stood by Shario's side, forming a powerful team. Meanwhile, the referee was watching everything unfold from above, speaking to a group of people seated before him. He told them that once half of the warriors were dead, they would start placing bets on who would win. He encouraged them to enjoy the spectacle as they watched. Then, he displayed the remaining contestants still alive, starting with the bull warrior, who held 3 Joseki gems and was currently leading with the highest number. In second place were the rabbit and the dragon warriors, each with 2 gems. Following them were the monkey and the rat warriors, Shario and Nezumi, each having only 1 gem inside their bodies. Each person in the audience began sharing their opinions, analyzing the personalities of the remaining contestants. The referee then presented 3 warriors with the highest chances of surviving until the end, Shario, the bull, and Usagi, the rabbit warrior. One of the spectators was surprised and asked, "Only 3?" She was taken aback, saying that betting wouldn't be as fun as in previous tournaments. They asked about the sheep warrior, whom the referee hadn't mentioned, despite him winning the 9th edition of the games. Another spectator responded, explaining that the sheep was no longer at his peak due to his age. However, the first person argued that he had more experience than any of the current players and predicted that he could shift the tournament's course completely. Some of them had already chosen who they would bet on. At that point, the referee said something strange. He claimed that the Johnny Tyson competition was a great war, one whose outcome would reshape the world map. It wasn't clear how the game was related to dividing the world as they pleased. Then, he instructed them to prepare, as after 3 more players died, they would begin placing bets on who they believed would win. As for the sheep warrior, whom they had been discussing, he was sitting alone, thinking and strategizing his next move in the competition. He told himself that Ashi, the bull warrior, along with Shario and Nezumi, were the 3 he had to avoid at all costs. They were too strong, and just one attack from any of them could kill him instantly without anyone even noticing. He planned to make them turn against each other and eliminate one another without him getting involved. He then recalled a time in his life when he was with his grandchildren, telling them bedtime stories to help them sleep. He told them about his younger years when he was an arms dealer. Every time he got entangled with a gang, he would blow them up and escape. From a young age, he loved weapons and explosives, always training himself to use them. As he grew older, he became associated with a family called Suki, one of the major families involved in the arms trade. They wanted him to marry their daughter. Eventually, he participated in the Johnny Tyson tournament himself, proved his strength, and won. Afterward, he returned to his grandchildren and spent time raising them. Those were the happiest moments of his life, sharing even the simplest joys with them. But life never goes as planned. One day, his grandson received an invitation to compete in Johnny Tyson, forcing him to participate. The sheep warrior was terrified for his grandson and refused to let him enter the competition. Instead, he took his place. He told himself that as long as he was alive, he would never allow his family or grandchildren, the source of his happiness, to suffer. At that moment, the sheep returned to his strategy, considering how to deal with the remaining contestants. He then pulled out the gem he was supposed to have swallowed. It was revealed that he was just as clever as Dasko. He had suspected something was wrong with the gem. Instead of swallowing it, he had hidden it in his hair without anyone noticing. Now, he was thinking of how to use it to his advantage. Meanwhile, back with Shario and Usagi, Shario displayed incredible intelligence. She was able to counter all of Usagi's attacks without even striking back or using her full strength. As for Nezumi, he was chasing after Usagi's undead minions. Meanwhile, Shario was trying to convince Usagi to join them and accept their peace treaty. She asked what wish he wanted to fulfill if he won the competition. She assured him that no matter what his wish was, she would help him achieve it without anyone having to die. The scene then shifted back to the sheep warrior, who was analyzing the abilities of each remaining contestant. Suddenly, Ashi launched an attack on the area where the sheep had been hiding. The sheep quickly fled before Ashi could spot him. He was certain that if Ashi even caught a glimpse of him, he would be done for. He set out to find strong or at least moderately powerful allies to help execute his plan. He soon spotted the tiger warrior but dismissed her immediately, thinking to himself that she was too weak and questioning why she was even there. Meanwhile, Shario was still battling Usagi, facing off against the swarm of birds under his control. Nezumi was still struggling to fend off the undead warriors at Usagi's command. They all continued like this, each one running from the other. Shario was still fighting Usagi while the sheep warrior kept fleeing from Ashi. He then spotted the tiger warrior and found her completely unaware of her surroundings. Every time he tried to speak to her, she didn't understand him. She wasn't even seeing properly, as she saw 5 of him instead of just 1. The sheep warrior was baffled by her. How had she survived in the game this long while in such a state? He observed her, trying to figure out how he could use her to his advantage. He attempted to analyze anything about her abilities or personality to understand how she had managed to stay alive, but he reached no conclusion. Meanwhile, Shario and Usagi's fight had finally taken a different turn. Usagi, realizing that fighting Shario wasn't leading anywhere, suddenly ran away. Shario immediately chased after him, determined to catch him. Her mind was working non-stop, analyzing every move he made. She told herself that it was clear Usagi wasn't a skilled martial artist. If she kept attacking him from behind, she could defeat him and disable his ability to fight back. She managed to restrain him so she could talk to him properly. But suddenly, something completely unexpected happened. Usagi attacked Shario while she was behind him. She stood there in shock, falling to the ground. In that moment, she noticed that the head of the corpse that had been with Usagi was hanging in a tree. It had been watching her, helping Usagi take her down. As she lay there, about to lose consciousness, Usagi told her, "I hope when you wake up, you'll be obedient and follow my orders, just like the rest of my corpses." Meanwhile, the sheep warrior had grown tired of talking to the tiger warrior. He decided to finish her off. As a rule of combat, every warrior introduced themselves to their opponent before attacking. So, the sheep warrior told her, "My name is Histonji. I'm glad to be the one to finish you off and rid myself of your stupidity." The tiger warrior responded, "My name is Tora, and my ability is to attack while unconscious." Histonji paused for a moment, trying to process what she had just said about her power. Suddenly, without thinking, Tora lunged at Histonji, grabbing his gem from his body in a split second. In shock, Histonji thought to himself that he was the one who had been foolish. Then, he collapsed to the ground, dead. With Histonji's death, only 6 contestants remained. The referee officially announced the start of the betting phase. He told the spectators that the warriors' abilities were now clear, and they could each decide who to bet on. He displayed the current ranking predictions. Ashi was in first place, followed by Usagi, then Tora, and the horse. Most of the audience placed their bets on Ashi, while a few chose the rabbit. The scene then returned to the tournament, where the horse warrior was seen hiding somewhere, slightly wounded and covered in scars. He recalled his life before joining the competition. He had once been an ordinary man serving in the military. One day, a man wearing a mechanical suit, his body entirely covered in metal, attacked him and stabbed him, knocking him down. He was taken to the hospital, his body covered in wounds and fractures. From that moment on, he wanted to change his body to become like the man who had attacked him. He underwent numerous surgeries, lifted impossibly heavy weights, sometimes as heavy as buildings, and trained himself to withstand extreme heat until he reached the level of strength he desired. His body became armored and nearly invincible. Suddenly, the horse warrior, Uma, heard a sound nearby. He looked around and discovered Nezumi sitting next to him, playing on his phone. Uma was startled and asked, "What are you doing here?" Nezumi casually replied that he was hiding from the snake warrior's corpse, which was hunting him down. He then asked Uma if he could stay in his hiding spot for a while. He explained that everything had turned against him after Shario died. She was the only one who had guided him and told him what to do. Uma was shocked to hear that Shario was dead. He had believed she was incredibly skilled and would last until the end, not die so soon. Nezumi continued talking, explaining what Usagi had done and sharing more about himself. He rambled on about how much he hated the world they were in, calling it a dead world, just like all the people playing in this game. Then, he asked if he knew where Hystenji was. Replied, "You mean the sheep warrior who blows up his opponents?" Then wondered why Nezumi was specifically asking about him but remained silent, not saying anything. Nezumi quickly realized that had no idea where Hystenji was. He stood up, thanked for letting him hide there, then told him, "I'm leaving now, and you should too. The snake warrior is probably tracking me and will find this place soon." He warned that the snake was incredibly cunning and powerful. Wondered where exactly he should go. He was afraid of running into Ashi, who had left wounds on his supposedly invincible body. He stood there, uncertain about what to do next. Just then, the snake warrior arrived and set fire to hiding place. At that moment, Usagi was still with Shario, trying to extract the gem from her body. He was grinning like a madman. Suddenly, he noticed a fire in the distance and immediately realized that the snake warrior was responsible for it. He took Shario's gem and waited until she fully transformed into a corpse under his command. Then, he took her with him to the burning site. Rewinding to an earlier time, when the warriors were first gathering at the competition's starting point, the two brothers, the snake warrior and the dragon warrior, were the first to arrive. They stepped into the elevator, fully aware that it could be a trap designed to eliminate them, but they enjoyed testing their limits and challenging themselves. As they rode up, they discussed the other warriors joining the game, expressing their curiosity about whether any interesting newcomers would be present. They recalled their past before entering the competition, when they used to trick people into believing they were one person to pull off scams, steal gems, and take anything valuable in sight. Eventually, they became notorious, and the Tsumi family adopted them, asking them to participate in the upcoming Johnny Tyson competition to represent and honor their name. They agreed, and the family celebrated them, publicly praising their achievements. However, one of the brothers felt uneasy deep inside. He told his sibling that if they joined the competition, one of them would have to die while the other emerged victorious. His brother smirked with a sly expression and replied, "Who said that's the only possible outcome?" Despite this, their relationship remained unaffected. They continued scamming and stealing. One day, they intercepted a smugglers group, which was transporting a rare lizard along with a cache of weapons. The snake warrior took the lizard while his brother, the dragon warrior, assisted him in escaping. Once they were out, they blew up the entire place, eliminating everyone inside. Fast forwarding to the day of the competition, they were still inside the elevator. They reached the 150th floor, assuming they were the first warriors to arrive. But to their surprise, they were greeted by Usagi, dressed as a waiter, serving them drinks. The snake warrior turned to his brother and asked if they should eliminate Usagi. The dragon warrior replied, "He looks like one of the staff here." They lowered their weapons. At that moment, Usagi spoke, "I'm no servant. I'm the rabbit warrior." Suddenly, he dropped the drink he was holding. The brothers exchanged glances, wondering if Usagi was insane or if something was off about him. He stood before them, completely unsteady. Then, with innocent enthusiasm, Usagi said, "I want to be your friend." He asked the snake warrior if he could see his weapon, claiming to be curious about how it worked. The snake warrior smirked, telling him, "You wouldn't know how to use it anyway." Usagi's expression darkened, and in an instant, he unsheathed his sword and slashed the snake warrior's neck. His brother stood motionless, not in shock, but in amusement. He scoffed, "Good, he was useless anyway." Just then, Ashi arrived, causing Usagi to pause his assault. At the same time, on the floor below them, Shario was preparing explosives to destroy the building, just as it had happened. Returning to the present, Usagi ordered Shario's corpse to retrieve the gem from the dog warrior's body. The fire raged around them. Obediently, she carried out his command, retrieved the gem, and returned it to him. Meanwhile, Tora stood in front of the snake warrior, still as unaware as before. However, she recognized him. He was the same boy who had died before the game even started. She decided to finish him off once and for all. Just as she was about to strike, the snake warrior unleashed flames from his weapon. With lightning-fast reflexes, she darted forward, snatching the weapon from him and disabling it. Then, she went for his arm, ready to sever it. But midway through the fight, she grew bored. Instead of finishing him, she left him with just one arm and walked away, searching for another target to take down. At that moment, Ashi arrived at the same location. He saw the snake warrior and decided to finish the job, slicing off his remaining arm just because he was bored. "If you move, I'll finish you off completely. Cut off both your legs too," Ashi told him. Hearing Ashi's voice, Tora turned back and rejoined the scene. Ashi told her to wait until he was done with the corpse before it was her turn. Tora was irritated by his tone. She immediately assumed a battle stance, ready to attack. Ashi smirked and let go of the snake warrior, preparing to fight her instead. But at that moment, the severed hands of the snake warrior suddenly moved on their own, attacking both Ashi and Tora, strangling them tightly. They struggled to break free. Ashi turned to Tora and said, "Let's work together. In return, we'll be a team until the end." Tora hesitated, then agreed, asking, "What's the plan?" Ashi told her, "Just keep releasing that weird substance you produce when you're angry." Then, he threw his sword at her. The friction ignited a fire, and Tora's substance fueled the flames, spreading them rapidly until they reached their target. At that moment, the dragon warrior was watching his brother from above, smirking to himself. He thought that if his brother were still alive, he wouldn't have been able to accomplish even a quarter of what his corpse was doing now. He chuckled at the irony, curious to see what Ashi and Tora would do to get rid of his brother. At that moment, the dragon warrior recalled standing trial in court for the crimes he and his brother had committed. He had been faced with numerous charges. The judge asked about his twin brother, who was absent from the trial. The dragon warrior told him that his brother was gravely ill and couldn't attend. The judge, being soft-hearted, accepted the unreasonable excuse. During the trial, the prosecutor described the horrific crime the brothers had committed and then asked the dragon warrior to recount the details himself. At that moment, it was revealed that the dragon warrior had once visited a scientific research company and met with a high-ranking official there. While they were speaking, an assistant entered and informed them that the important people they had been expecting had arrived and were waiting. It turned out that the research company was collaborating with human traffickers, who provided test subjects for their experiments. Each company had hired one of the Tsumi twins as security because they didn't trust each other and needed someone to ensure their safety in case something went wrong. One of the companies had decided to betray the other. Meanwhile, the brothers were only in it for the money. One day, the research company met with the other business for an exchange. Each company had called on one of the Tsumi brothers for protection. When the brothers arrived together, the company executives were shocked to realize that the mercenaries they had hired were actually twin brothers working together. Everything turned against the companies in an instant. The brothers wiped out everyone present, making their way to the vault, which was overflowing with gold and cash. They took everything, walked out of the building, then set it on fire, killing countless people inside. The dragon warrior recounted the story casually, as if it were nothing. Then, the defense attorney representing the brothers spoke up. It was revealed that people had misjudged them. They weren't as evil as they seemed. In reality, the Tsumi brothers had been stealing money and distributing it to the poor and needy. They had saved countless children, elderly people, and homeless individuals. At one point, they even helped a boy by giving him money to pay for his blind brother's surgery. The boy had taken the money, the operation was performed, and his brother regained his sight. But then, the other prosecutor stepped in and used this very story against them. He explained that after the operation, a fire broke out in the hospital. The boy had tried to escape with his newly healed brother, but a large chunk of debris collapsed on top of him, killing him and preventing him from getting out. When the boy finally made it outside, he saw the Tsumi brothers standing there, setting the building on fire. He fainted from shock and was later rescued by medics, who took him to another hospital. A month later, he visited his deceased brother's grave. There, he encountered the Tsumi brothers again. They gave him money as compensation for his brother's death. Ever since that day, the boy had been in a state of trauma. The prosecutor intensified the situation, telling the judge that the Tsumi brothers weren't the heroes people thought they were. He argued that they committed crimes and then handed out money afterward, thinking it would make people forgive them. He pointed out that they had no regard for the emotional suffering they had caused. The judge postponed the trial for another month. Afterward, the dragon warrior returned to his apartment, where he found his brother on the balcony, in a great mood, grilling food and eating. His brother handed him 2 letters, both invitations to Johnny Tyson. The tournament had finally called upon them. The dragon warrior told his brother, "The time we've been waiting for has finally come." At that moment, he snapped out of his thoughts and blamed his dead brother for dying, leaving him to continue alone. Meanwhile, Tora was in agony, her body engulfed in flames. But she endured the pain until she felt the corpse begin to burn and weaken. She threw it off her, then turned and used the fire to ignite the severed hand strangling Ashi. Together, they succeeded in destroying it. Ashi took a deep breath and told Tora, "The fire will finish the corpse completely. We need to take it down together now." Suddenly, Usagi looked up at the sky. He knew that the dragon warrior was hiding above. He ordered Shirio's corpse to hurl him into the air. As Usagi soared upward, he reached the dragon warrior and tossed his brother's severed head into his hands. The dragon warrior was stunned, gripped by fear. In that instant, Usagi drew his sword and sliced the dragon warrior in half. Now, only 3 contestants remained. Usagi gathered all the corpses under his command and descended back to the ground, standing before Ashi and Tora. At that moment, Tora's mind drifted back to her past. Her story was revealed. She had once been an ordinary girl, but she had always loved martial arts. She excelled at them and trained at the Ira dojo among more than 100 students. One day, she challenged all of them at once and defeated them one after another. Her instructor was impressed, praising her strength and telling her that he expected her to have a great future. However, he warned her that to become a complete warrior, there were things she still didn't understand, things she could only learn through real war experience. She needed to gain first-hand knowledge. Tora listened to him and promised to follow his advice, believing that by the time she grew older, she would use her skills to protect the weak and help those in need. But she would later regret that decision. As soon as she stepped onto a real battlefield and witnessed true war, the bodies scattered everywhere, the devastation surrounding her, she began to change. She became terrified of humans. She questioned why people would kill each other in such ways, and for what reason. Yet, she pushed herself forward, determined to follow her instructor's teachings. She gained the experience he had spoken of, and soon, everyone admired her. The state honored her for her achievements. But despite this, she wasn't satisfied with what she was doing. She wasn't happy in her new life. That was when she turned to alcohol. She drank to forget the horrors of war. She consumed massive amounts, as if it were nothing more than water. One night, after leaving a bar in a drunken haze, she collapsed onto the ground. She tried to get up, using her hands and feet to support herself. But she found that she liked that position. Since she was intoxicated, she kept walking that way all the way home. She discovered that moving like that made her faster, so she adopted it in battle. Her personality changed completely. She began to enjoy drinking and killing. Each time she improved in combat, the state rewarded her even more. But when she returned to her instructor, completely drunk, he was furious. He told her, "This isn't the Torah I know. You've turned into a monster." She responded, "There's no difference between humans and monsters, they're the same." Seeing that reasoning with her was pointless, he expelled her from the dojo and ordered her never to return. After that, she drank even more. Everyone noticed how terrifyingly she had changed. But she felt nothing. She was completely numb to the world. All she did was drink and head into battle, slaughtering her enemies. Until one day, she drank so much that she couldn't distinguish between allies and enemies. She killed indiscriminately, taking down both sides. And that was when she truly felt happiness. From that moment on, she continued this way, forgetting who she was. She no longer knew if she was alive or dead. Now, back in the present, after remembering everything, Tora was even more furious. Her anger made her more savage. Ashi asked her if she had any additional abilities they could use to deal with the corpses before them. Tora replied that she had nothing beyond what he already knew. She told him, "Enough wasting time. Let's attack before they do." Ashi charged toward the snake warrior's corpse while Tora took on the dragon warrior's corpse. She soon discovered that his suit contained liquid nitrogen, capable of freezing anything within seconds. She took the suit and ran a distance away. Then, she leaped into the air and shattered the suit while it was still on the brothers' bodies. They both froze solid. Tora had eliminated the brothers without Ashi's help. Ashi thanked her, admitting, "I'm starting to be afraid of you. I'm worried you might be the last person I have to fight." Tora smirked and said, "We'll see about that later." Suddenly, Usagi, full of confidence, attacked Ashi. Without hesitation, Tora severed Usagi's head in an instant, killing him. Now, only two contestants remained, Tora and Ashi. One of them would emerge as the winner. Their alliance was over. Both prepared for the violent battle that awaited them. At that moment, Tora's memories resurfaced once again. She saw herself wandering aimlessly, lost in a daze as always. A large group of soldiers surrounded her, intent on eliminating her. Suddenly, Ashi appeared and took down every last soldier. He walked over to Tora, who had collapsed on the ground, and helped her up. He asked if she was okay. He had mistaken her for a kidnapped girl and had come to rescue her. Tora was baffled by him. She wondered why he was acting this way, why he was speaking to her so kindly. She finally asked him, "Why are you doing this?" Ashi replied, "Because it's the right thing to do." She asked, "How do you know what you're doing is right?" Ashi hesitated. "I don't know," he admitted. He simply felt it deep inside. He needed to help her. He picked her up in his arms, as she was too weak to walk. Tora told him she felt lost. She could no longer distinguish anything in her life. She asked him for help and shared her story with him. Ashi told her, "You chose to be this way from the start. You could have stayed away from war and chosen a different path for yourself." She argued, "The world around me forced me to become like this." Ashi shook his head. "No one forced you," he said. "You did this to yourself. You had so many choices, yet you picked the worst path of them all." He acknowledged that the world wasn't perfect, just as she claimed. But just as there was evil, there was also good. She could have walked away from the darkness on her own. He told her that human beings never run out of chances. She could start over at any time, step away from a path she didn't like, and change her life in an instant. But the most important thing was understanding what she truly wanted. Tora listened, trying to process his words. She wanted to understand him, but her mind was too clouded to fully grasp everything he was saying. Ashi took her to a shelter for the homeless, staying with her until she recovered. When he was ready to leave, Tora asked him to stay a little longer. Ashi told her he couldn't. There were many others who needed his help. He joked, "I hope we don't end up facing each other in battle someday." Then, he walked away. Tora told herself that Ashi was the only one truly worthy of being called a warrior. The difference between them was vast. But instead of discouraging her, it set a goal in her mind. She wanted to become a warrior whom people acknowledged. She wanted to return to him as someone changed. The strange coincidence that had brought her and Ashi together completely transformed her life. She became human again. She trained herself anew. War no longer affected her the way it once had. She sought to become an entirely new person. During this time, she searched for Ashi everywhere, in every battle, hoping to find him. The search took so long that she nearly lost hope of ever seeing him again. One day, she visited a friend's house to chat for a while. By chance, they began discussing the Johnny Tyson competition. Her friend told her that the tournament gathered the greatest warriors from the 12 strongest families in the world. At that moment, Tora realized that Ashi had to be a participant. She immediately decided to enter as well. She returned to the Ira dojo and begged her instructor to recommend her, pleading for him to secure her an invitation to the competition. Her instructor agreed and arranged for her to compete in Johnny Tyson. When the tournament day arrived, Tora was ecstatic. She was finally going to see Ashi again. But when she entered and faced him, Ashi didn't remember her. That crushed her. It infuriated her. She resolved to take revenge on him. Now, back in the present, after recalling her story with Ashi, both warriors prepared to fight each other. But suddenly, Usagi's corpse moved. It swung its sword at Tora, striking her. Ashi attempted to sever Usagi's corpse into multiple pieces to destroy it, but it was no use. Realizing this, he grabbed Tora and carried her away, determined to save her. Their battle wasn't over yet. Usagi was still alive. As they fled, Ashi told Tora to hold on. "Don't die now," he said. "I'll save you. I never intended to kill you in the first place." He reminded her that she had saved him from the Snake Warrior. No one had ever done something like that for him before. He kept running with her for a long distance. Tora, exhausted, finally asked him to put her down. Ashi found a safe spot and gently placed her on the ground. But when he looked at her, he saw she was bleeding heavily. If they didn't stop the bleeding, she would die. He had no idea how to treat her wounds. "I'll figure something out," he assured her. "I'll take you to the nearest hospital in the city and get you treated. Then we'll come back and finish the tournament together." Tora smiled weakly and said, "Time is against us. We won't make it." She admitted that she was going to die anyway. "If you really want to help me," she said, "grant me my last wish." Ashi hesitated. "What do you wish for?" Tora looked him in the eyes. "I want you to be the one to kill me," she said. "I don't want Usagi to be the one who takes my life." She told him that it would be an honor for her if the great warrior she knew was the last person she ever fought. Ashi refused immediately. "No," he said, "I can't do that." Tora told him, "If you don't, I'll turn into one of Usagi's undead minions. He'll control me however he wants. That's not something I want." Ashi thought about it. He realized that death would be a mercy for her. She had no chance of surviving. Reluctantly, he bid her farewell. Then, he drove his sword through her heart. His grief was overwhelming. Guilt consumed him, but there was nothing else he could have done. Ashi stood before Tora's lifeless body, questioning why he felt such overwhelming sorrow. He gazed at her for a while and admitted that she reminded him of the girl he had met years ago, the one he had helped and taken to the shelter. Throughout his time with Tora, he had always suspected that she was the same girl he had saved, but he kept denying it. The difference in their personalities was far too great. It was impossible for them to be the same person. In the end, it turned out that Ashi had never forgotten her, despite what she had believed. He then resumed his search for Usagi's corpse, determined to end him once and for all. He tried to devise a way to stop the body from moving again. He recalled how they had managed to neutralize the Snake Warrior's severed hand by burning it. It had never moved again after that. From there, Ashi began formulating his plan to finish Usagi. His first task was to find flammable materials to use against him. He decided to search for gasoline, intending to siphon it from the nearby cars. But before he could execute his plan, he was suddenly confronted by Usagi. This time, however, Usagi had fused all of his corpses into his own body. He looked monstrous, completely terrifying. Ashi realized he had no choice but to dismember Usagi's body again. He had to find gasoline afterward and return to burn him. He started with Usagi's leg, raising his sword and slicing it off. But just then, Shario lunged at him, knocking him to the ground. It turned out that Usagi had been more cunning than Ashi had anticipated. He had left Shario's corpse aside as a backup, waiting for the perfect moment to use her. Ashi cursed himself for underestimating Usagi's intelligence. Now, after death, Shario's corpse had become even stronger. She overpowered Ashi completely, pinning him down. He couldn't move. At that moment, Ashi contemplated taking his own life. He couldn't bear the thought of becoming one of Usagi's mindless minions. Shario continued striking him, and he bled profusely. Ashi felt his end approaching. He desperately wanted to die before it was too late, but he was trapped, unable to act. He was ready to give up and accept his fate. But suddenly, someone appeared. It was Nezumi, the one everyone had forgotten. He was still alive. He was the only contestant left whom Usagi hadn't taken control of. But even after seeing Nezumi before him, Ashi remained hopeless. He knew Nezumi was weak. There was no way he could handle Usagi or Shario alone. But then, Nezumi pulled out a bomb, one he had found near Hystenji's corpse. Ashi's eyes lit up with relief. That bomb was enough to obliterate Usagi, to incinerate his body completely. But Ashi's relief wasn't because he would survive. No, he knew he would die along with the explosion. But at least he wouldn't die by Usagi's hand. He wouldn't become one of his controlled corpses. Nezumi spoke to him, telling him that he owed it all to Tora. She had been the one to defeat Hystenji and leave the bomb behind. Nezumi then asked Ashi if he had any final words before he died. Ashi simply replied, "I have nothing to say." Then, he requested, "Detonate the bomb. It's the right thing to do." Nezumi placed the bomb on the ground and walked away. As the explosion neared, Ashi suddenly felt that he had seen Nezumi somewhere before, but he couldn't remember where. And just as the memory surfaced, the bomb detonated. No one ever discovered Nezumi's true identity, even though everyone felt they had seen him before. With Nezumi emerging as the game's winner, he went to meet the referee. He carried all 12 jewels in his hands. He took the antidote and drank it. The referee congratulated him. He admitted that Nezumi had defied all expectations. He then asked him to stay for a while. He wanted to record an interview with him for the future Johnny Tyson contestants. But Nezumi refused. At that moment, he imagined himself leaving the referee's office, stepping into the elevator, only for it to plummet, killing him. So he reconsidered. Instead of taking the elevator, he imagined himself walking down the stairs, only to be pushed off and killed. He kept replaying different scenarios in his mind. Every single one ended with his death. He realized that rejecting the referee's request would only get him killed. So, he decided not to refuse. He would comply with what was asked of him. During the interview, the referee asked how he had won the tournament. Nezumi answered, "By pure luck." He hadn't planned anything from the start. He had simply observed everything as it unfolded, then seized the opportunity at the very end. Everything had worked in his favor. "I was just a little lucky," he said with a smirk. As for the explosives, Shario had told him before she died, if she ever became one of Usagi's corpses, he should take one of Hystenji's bombs and use it to destroy both her and Usagi. Nezumi had remembered her words. When he happened to stumble upon Hystenji's corpse, he had grabbed the bomb beside it and used it to blow up Usagi. The referee was highly impressed with Shario. He remarked that she was famous in the country she had saved from war. He also revealed that Shario had once been offered the chance to sit among them, to wager on countries alongside the world's leaders who were present at the tournament. With that, the interview concluded. The referee had asked everything he wanted to know. He told Nezumi he was free to go now. Once again, he congratulated him on his victory. Before he left, the referee reminded him to think carefully about the wish he wanted to be granted. "When you know what it is, don't hesitate to contact me," he said. Nezumi got up without saying a word. Right now, his only priority was to go somewhere and sleep. And so, he returned to his home, resuming his normal life like any ordinary person. He woke up and went to school, but he felt suffocated. He couldn't stand himself. He couldn't stand his classmates around him. His mind kept circling back to the wish, unsure of what he truly wanted. He asked himself whether he even needed a wish, whether there was anything in his life worth wishing for. At school, when he entered his classroom, a classmate approached him and started talking to him. She was incredibly kind. He asked her, "If you had the chance to make a wish, what would you wish for?" She smiled and answered, "I'd wish for everyone to achieve their dreams and be happy." For a moment, he thought that was actually a good wish. But then he reconsidered. If everyone were happy, then even the people he despised, his enemies, would be happy too. And the wishes of the wicked would only make them more evil. That would ruin the world. On his way home from school, as he rode the subway, he considered the idea of granting a wish to just one specific person. But that felt like wasting his only wish. He grew frustrated. He couldn't decide. Then, suddenly, he remembered Shario. He recalled her kindness toward him in the beginning. He thought about her words. And for a moment, he considered using his wish to make her vision come true. A perfect world. But he quickly dismissed the idea. Such a world wouldn't be good either. Finally, he came to the right decision. He decided to bring Shario back to life. Her kindness would bring happiness to many people. She could spread peace again. But then, He hesitated. Would Shario even be happy if she were brought back? Doubt crept in again. He considered reviving everyone who had died, but he quickly realized what a terrible idea that was. It wasn't something that should happen. Then, he thought about keeping the wish for himself. He could wish for eternal youth, but even that didn't feel right. His thoughts drifted to the other warriors in the tournament. Before the competition began, he had gone around and asked each of them what they desired most. And at that moment, it became clear why so many of them had thought they had seen Nezumi before. The first person he had asked was Nyo. She had wished for self-confidence. Then, he had asked Oma, who told him that he feared losing more than he feared dying. As for Toshiko, her wish had been completely different. She wanted more than 3 billion people to love her. She wanted to be famous worldwide. He realized that most of their wishes were terrible. They wouldn't benefit him at all. He wandered through the city, passing through impoverished areas. He considered using his wish to improve those places. But then, he thought, some of the people there didn't even deserve it. He imagined what would have happened if he had died in the tournament, picturing every warrior he had faced. The thought terrified him. He forced himself to stop imagining it. Then, he remembered his middle school years. Back then, he had liked a simple girl from his class. He had tried over 100 different ways to get her attention, to make her like him. But every time, she had rejected him. She had been in love with someone else. From that moment on, Nezumi considered his ability to experiment with different approaches until he found the right one as a skill. He would keep trying, imagining every scenario, until he succeeded. Then, he recalled his conversation with Dasko. He had asked Dasko what his wish was. Dasko had told him that he wanted to work at a daycare. He loved children. He loved his daughter more than anything. But because of his terrifying appearance, children were always afraid of him. Nezumi had been surprised. It was the first time he had heard that Dasko had a daughter. So, he asked him about her. Dasko explained that she wasn't his biological daughter. One day, he had been assigned to deliver a young girl to a client. But he discovered that the client wanted her for experiments, things that would harm her. Fearing for her, he had saved her instead. He had taken her in, raised her, and cared for her as if she were his own. And for the first time in his life, he had felt like he was living for a purpose, to protect and raise that girl. As for the twin brothers, their wish was obvious: money. With enough money, they believed, anyone could achieve any wish they wanted in life. Then, there was Usagi. His wish had been to make the entire world his friends. He wanted everyone to love him just as much as he loved them. Now, Nezumi felt frustrated. He was the only one who had entered the competition without a wish. He asked himself, why had he even joined in the first place? He counted all the wishes he had thought of so far. There were 99 of them. Inside his head, all 99 wishes clashed, battling each other. He didn't know which one to choose. He overanalyzed every wish, imagining the consequences of each if it came true. It overwhelmed him. He couldn't stop thinking. Then, the referee appeared and asked Nezumi if he had decided on his wish. Nezumi panicked. He still had no idea which one to choose. So, he decided on wish number 100. He wished to forget everything. He wished to forget that he had ever wanted anything from life. The referee granted his wish. Nezumi's mind finally fell silent. For the first time, he felt at peace. The next day, he returned to school. He rested his head on his desk as usual. But for the first time, he smiled. And he slept in peace, without a single thought on his mind.